So I'd like to welcome everybody. Thank you for coming. This session is, part of the wider ICC event. We're going to be talking a little bit about connecting to the edge, how to enable IPCs with 4G to really create a reliable solution. Talking a little bit about how to do that, what are some of the best practices, both as a standalone application when direct with Ignition, and then talk a little bit about how you can use eSIMs to further enhance that capability. My name is Cole Wangsis. I'm one of the OnLogic sales engineers, lead partner tech. So I help enable many of our inductive automation integration partners. I see a number of people who know me already, so glad you could make it today. And with that, we're going to hop right into it. Just a brief intro to really who we are first as an organization, so you understand that. We, as an IPC manufacturer, industrial PC manufacturer, our role is really to create systems that are going to be ultra reliable out in the field for as long as your project needs it. We were originally established in 2003 as a component manufacturer, moved towards fully integrated systems, as well as in the last couple of years, building our own systems from the ground up. What makes us a little bit different in the market is we do all the final assembly and testing right here in the United States, or if you're based in the European Union, we have a sister site over there as well. Those are both our full manufacturing centers, as well. Our engineering and support is also here, so that you have a truly vertically integrated experience from when you first talk to one of our salespeople all the way to that post-sale support for your project. We also maintain some offices strategic in Asia for supply chain sourcing, as well as additional resources to work with some of our motherboard CMs. We're also going to be establishing another site in the United States in a little over a couple of weeks, and we're excited for that as well. So without further ado, just to give you an overview, if you're not already familiar with our product line, we really focus, especially as an Ignition onboard partner, on industrial and rugged systems. What that means to us is industrial, if you think of it, is our indoor tougher manufacturing space. These systems are fanless, generally good for 0 to 50 degrees Celsius, and have a wide variety of options so that we can configure it directly to your needs. We build all of our systems to order for any product you get from us. Our rugged line is focused directly on that wider operating temperature, negative 40 to 70 degrees Celsius, in vehicle deployments, as well as wider input voltage for the most extreme remote sites. All these systems are, again, built directly in-house. We go ahead and do a full burn-in testing for them, and really they're designed to last out in the field for as long as you need that. Supplementing, as you can see here on this slide, we have a number of systems that are part of our Ignition onboard offering as one of the partners of inductive automation. So they can come preloaded with Ignition Edge, and we have solution specialists here to help you make that selection as what hardware is right for you. From the industrial and rugged, I've already mentioned, as well integrated rugged panel PCs that give you the flexibility to offer different screen sizes, as well as the ability for high compute edge servers, such as if you need to do deep learning, machine learning, AI, vision at the edge. So into the main topic here. What happens when I can't access wired or Wi-Fi networks? This can take a couple forms. One of the most common we see, especially as we work with a number of customers in oil and gas, as well as wastewater and other energy projects, is it is cost prohibitive to lay down a wired connection out to these types of facilities. If you've got a bunch of oil sites spread out geographically remote, you're not going to have the ability to have Ethernet or any kind of Wi-Fi connectivity there. Another big one that we see is in vehicle. A lot of companies deploy Wi-Fi at their hubs for their logistics, cold chain storage, so that you can have some level of connectivity. But once those vehicles hit the road, there's no way to have constant connectivity to the device. And lastly, another area we see the use of 4G is in either air gap facilities, such as those sensitive sites may be working with the government. There may be strict IT controls in place for accessing that network. Many of you may be familiar with having to use some kind of DMZ server when you're connecting to OT and IT networks. And that allows us to potentially create an avenue with 4G in all these locations and use cases where we can make a stable solution that's really going to enable people for that internet connectivity that they need without having to have it be cost prohibitive. So what 4G enabled IPCs, as you see behind me, a number of OnLogic systems, they will untether your hardware from your network. There's no need for cables, no need for you to worry about router proximity. As well, you're not dependent on necessarily the customer network, or you can allow it to have, if you are connected to that network, have the ability to fail over onto cellular when uptime is critical, which for a number of you folks, especially in manufacturing, we know is absolutely key. Additionally, not only is it going to be available in a wide range of systems, but it's also going to be less expensive than a standalone 4G router. Typically, what I've seen from when we work with people is they're in the $700 range. A integrated 4G modem can cost quite a bit less, maybe about a third of the cost. So not only does it simplify by eliminating the need for an additional point of hardware, but it reduces the overall cost of the solution you're bringing to your customers. Lastly, I mentioned this a little bit already, but improving your network resilience, you can use it to supplement your existing connectivity with 4G failover for a more resilient solution. So not only you're not dependent on your customer networks, but you can offer this as a value add. So let's understand how one of our customers might be using this solution today. So I'd like to highlight a company called Lensec. They are a provider of video management solutions around the world with their Perspective VMS system. They work with government, public safety, energy, healthcare, and they came to OnLogic because they had a need for a wireless video communication and surveillance system, as well as access control for a rugged PC that could connect out in the field without the need for any kind of wiring or larger WAN connectivity. They needed to have that connectivity, but they couldn't have any kind of wire out there given the remoteness you see in this picture. Because the need was for solar power, meaning they needed a wide range of input voltage, they didn't have that network connectivity, and it was also an outdoor deployment. That means we needed to deploy one of our rugged solutions. So they worked with our solution specialist to spec in a PC for this project that was deployed around the country for one of the largest independent crude oil and natural gas companies, able to withstand the environment and then provide the connectivity they needed for 4G LTE. In this case, rugged can be a great fit. Any of our solutions can be a perfectly good system for your next project. So we have the resources here for you to contact our team so that they can ask some questions, understand what you're trying to do with the PC, and make sure they're recommending the right system that's tailored specifically to your deployment. Now, there are some considerations you need to make when talking about 4G. One of the big ones I like to call is deployment concerns. So the first two really focus on geographic or really just limits in transmission in general. You may think about it from a perspective of that in-vehicle story. If you're on a subway and you're getting telematics data about a subway system, that's going to be underground. That may not be conducive to great signal strength. Or let's say in a building management system, you may be in a basement with a concrete foundation. Again, does not improve signal connectivity. So you may need to understand, is a 4G cellular a right fit for you there in that subway use case? Or maybe for BMS, as we have seen for some of our customers in the building space, you may need to understand where to deploy your PC. It might not be where you first thought it would be. It might be closer to where a wall is, and there might be better connectivity there. Some other examples would be more along the lines of limits on transmission. In medical environments, you may not have the ability to have any wireless signals whatsoever. So make sure if deploying in a medical environment, you check that 4G is allowed to be deployed. Same with the government. Sensitive sites, you may not have that ability to have outside connectivity. So just make sure that that's part of your requirements gathering if you're interested in 4G. And the last case is you kind of see in this picture, if you're out in literally the middle of nowhere, and you have no signal connectivity from any of the carriers, that might not be a good fit for cellular. There are solutions out there on the market that can help you, whether that be satellite communication, SATCOM cards, which do offer quite low bandwidth compared to what you'd get for 4G cellular, or there are some ways to do private cellular networks out in the field. The last one is really important as well, selecting the right architecture. As you may be familiar with, there are a lot of different ways to deploy Ignition. So one of the questions I ask a ton is, do you need local redundancy or control? What Ignition Edge then does is you can bring those sessions locally, run them on the systems at the edge. If you're just sending a vision or perspective client from your central server out to the edge, that generally doesn't make a ton of sense for remote sites because any interruption of connectivity is going to cause downtime issues. So what I always recommend is use Ignition Edge, uses it as a limited field server, whether that's just with IIoT to transmit that data, store and forward those tag values, or if you're using it as a remote HMI, deploy Ignition panel and then have it so it can operate remotely. It can operate if there's even no network connectivity out to your central server, and then store and forward those data points later. So now let's understand a little bit about the workloads as well. So with that, one of the things to consider now that we've talked about deployment is, what do I do to make sure my workload's the right fit for 4G cellular? You see the kind of the first 3 points here. We're talking a lot about maximizing edge processing, i.e., how much performance are you going to place on the computer itself? How much of that data processing, whether that's an Ignition, whether that's your AI machine vision solution, how much of that can you do at the edge? This is where it's key to make sure you're right sizing the hardware solution that you want to pick for this. Because if you need to do advanced processing that may require like an i5 or an i7 processor, you will want to consider a different system versus if this is just a data logging device. Same thing with considering what you send off site. Once you process that data, what actually goes off site? What do you transmit back? You want to consider your data because you may only have a limited amount on the cellular plan that you select. And lastly, reducing download frequency. This really focuses around making sure you plan your maintenance around cellular, just like you would for any other deployment. It's on hours where there's low network usage, but also try to understand how much you need to deploy to, let's say, update the firmware of the device. One of the things that's really important too is, for example, in the initial imaging of the system, you want to make sure that you're actually going to pre-flight those and not just install it in the field and then have, send the image out that way. You're going to use up a lot of bandwidth doing that, and it's better to pre-flight the devices first at your, let's say your operations center, and then send it out to the field versus trying to do a field install. If you're doing that, make sure you send your technicians out with a low, like a USB stick or something to make that very simple, and don't to rely just on the cellular connectivity. The next 2 points are really about matching the plan and the modem to what you need. Just like you'd have for Ethernet connectivity, if your general connectivity, a 1 gigabit LAN connection could be fine. But if you're doing high video or high throughput video processing, you're going to want to select a higher bandwidth. So just like that, you have modems that are either Cat4 or Cat6. We have both options available. So make sure you understand actually how much data you're going to need and how fast you need that speed, because that's going to help you determine what modem you pick, and then match that with the data plan you pick from your carrier. If you're using just a standard data plan from one of the carriers like AT&T or Verizon, you want to understand what your monthly limits are, because there are different plans available. Obviously, if you go over, you're going to spend more. So you want to make sure you right size that as well. Now, from my experience, these last 2 points can sound a little intimidating if you've never done it before. You're having to consider this as a operational expenditure month over month. And when you're deploying these for devices out in the field, let's say, your edge data acquisition devices, what you're going to find is that, you're going to quickly use quite a bit of data, and you're going to be stuck with a large bill. And that's where I think eSIMs are a really good fit for a lot of these Ignition deployments. So we've brought out a new platform with a company called Euros. If you're not familiar with eSIMs are programmable SIMs that offer more flexibility versus what you might get if you went to a cell store today or had a locked-in contract with a carrier. They allow you those SIMs to be provisioned in real time so that they can give you a better overall user experience. You're not locked into the IDs right on that SIM card. So we partnered with Euros to bring an eSIM to the market, which has a ton of benefits. First off, you're no longer going to be tied to just one carrier. Wherever you deploy, whatever the best network connectivity is, whether that's AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile in the US, Rogers, Bell in Canada, you'll be able to use Euros, and Euros will select the best connectivity at that moment. It's ready for global deployments. It can be deployed in countries worldwide. Now, this is a larger conversation you want to have with us as well, given that not only do you need to have registration with the carriers on the SIM side, you also need to understand the safety and logistics requirements of some of these countries, like in the Middle East or in Africa. They may have different regulatory needs from a safety perspective, like something like their equivalent to a UL listing or EMMC testing, just like in the United States. For example, PTCRB would certify what modems could be used on certain networks. Euros simplifies a lot of that, but at the end of the day, there's some due diligence, and we've got the right resources from our regulatory team to help you do that. One of the really cool things that I think this brings to the table, especially for you guys, is going to be that automatic network failover. So not only is it going to select the right network and the strongest connection right then and there, but if, let's say, one network you had some kind of disruption or they had a cell tower go down, it would fail over to the next best connection, so that you are not losing time, you are not losing money based on cellular connectivity. It's highly secure, and also you have a very powerful platform called ESIM Connect, which we'll talk a little bit in a minute or so, and it allows you one point to bill, and also because you're working with Euros and not directly with any of the carriers, you pay exactly for what you use. There's a small fixed price up to 10 megabits per month. And then beyond that, it's adaptive pricing. So they charge you as little as possible, but you get to use the most amount of data, and it scales up from there. So if you're a company using tens of gigs a month, they can help you out there. Whereas if you're using just a small amount, sending back .csv files or just sending back a couple tags here and there, they can help you as well. So it's a great system, very scalable. Now, what it brings as well is going to be this ESIM Connect platform I mentioned. This is a single dashboard you can access from anywhere that you can manage all your devices from. So whether that's set profiles you see here, perhaps let's take it to a real world example. If you were a logistics company, you had a number of different trucks for different suppliers, or you needed to track which cargo loads were going where, you could set up device groups to see the amount of data that was being used. Additionally, yours will handle data reporting, so you can see real-time usage, and you can have alerts set up. So if there's any kind of unexpected activity, you can actually remotely suspend the connection, as well as just reactivate it just as easily. The SDK that will be loaded onto the system manages the modem interface, profiles, switching, provisioning, all that small stuff that generally you had to do with AT commands or set up through a command line is all very simply done. So you don't have to worry about quite a bit of that. Really helps bring it be as simple as possible. And this is available in not only all OnLogic systems, but especially I want to highlight that this is available in every single Ignition onboard system we have with our NWK200 modem. So with that, we've gone over quite a bit. I did want to just mention one last point here. We also have, as part of our solution for especially Ignition integrators like you, we are part of the onboard program, so we can offer you those systems with Ignition Edge preloaded. We will match your level of discount, as well as we can provide you a price off those front-end SKUs so that you can have some margin on those. Our only ask is that we will hold occasional forums to show you and highlight new technologies that we think are going to be beneficial for you. The last one we did, we showed you guys how to use IIoT orchestration so that when you have thousands of devices deployed, you can manage not only Ignition from the built-in EAM module, but also manage the device as its OS, its total firmware package, everything there. If you are interested in learning more about this, feel free to contact me directly. My contact info is on the screen, so if you'd like to take that down, I'm always available and I will help connect you. If it's not me, there's the right people and right folks here who will help enable your next project. Thanks and have a great day.